What's going on, everyone? I'm George Guay. Welcome back to another episode of Just Say Guay. I am joined by Grant Ament, who's a lacrosse player in the PLL for the Archers Lacrosse Club. Grant, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, George.
Yeah, so I got to ask, how have you been these last few months? I mean, with COVID, getting drafted, going into the bubble, and now preparing for another season. What's it been like?
Yeah, it's been, a lot went on definitely before the tournament and then obviously in the tournament. And then I took probably a week or two for kind of a relaxing period. And now I'm kind of, back into the swing of things when it comes to workouts and stuff, doing some coaching on the side. And really, this is probably the last big push until the new year. But for me, it's kind of just starting to understand, what an off season is and how to kind of prepare for it because, normally at this time, we would be in the midst of fall ball in State College, and we're not right now. I'm not right now, and there's no fall ball for obviously the PLL. So, the goal for me is just to continue to, keep staying in shape, keep trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, and because that stuff I think is what's going to separate me come 2021 when I suit up for the Archers.
Yeah, I really think just like the bubble and even next season, it's all about whoever was ready the most probably will do the best. So I got to ask, what was the lacrosse culture like growing up in Pennsylvania? Going to Haverford, where my friend Luke O'Grady went and played with you. They say the Mid-Atlantic is the best place for lacrosse. Can you amend to that?
Yeah. So, I'm from 45 minutes from Haverford. My mom drove me every day, and Luke lives pretty close to school. So I had the opportunity to be able to go there for high school because my area, there's not a whole lot of good lacrosse, I would say, around in my area. And, I knew I had older brothers, and I knew if I kind of wanted to separate myself, I had to go down there. And the biggest thing I would say is it just kind of prepares you for what college is like. Specifically at Haverford, the guys that I played with, the starting lineup was 10 Division I lacrosse commits. So there was there were guys that stood out at times, but there was no superstar on the team, and you really just learn how to play team lacrosse. And then I look at from a practice standpoint. When I arrived on campus, it really wasn't anything different than a Haverford practice. So I say it depends on kind of where. But those prestigious high schools for high school lacrosse, I think the biggest payout with it, and something that I'll always say is, I got to play under Coach Nostrand, and he prepared me for college lacrosse. So that way, when I stepped on campus, and it's the same for Chris Sabia, who I played with, we played at Haverford and Penn State together. When we stepped on campus, the only difference was guys were a little bit bigger and faster, but the speed of the play wasn't really much different for us.
Yeah, so it's great that your high school really prepared you for the next level. So, you guys went undefeated in 2015. Dozens and hundreds of high schools win the state championship every year, but I think it's very rare to go undefeated, especially when you're a top-tier program. You get everyone's best shot. Was that something that you guys thought was realistic going into this season?
Yeah. I mean, we knew the talent that we had. I mean, you look at just our roster, our offense, considering on our third line of midfield, there were, Johns Hopkins and UVA commits. We knew we had the talent, and we were pretty deep. We just kind of had to figure it out and just go for it. I would say it was a goal of ours, but it wasn't necessarily, the end all be all. Now I'd be lying to you if I said we don't still talk about it today and how crazy it is. I was with some of the guys a few weeks ago, and we were just kind of talking about it, and it's still pretty crazy what we were able to accomplish there. And again, just thankful I got to play for Coach Nostrand at Haverford, and Coach Patron and Coach Loving and all those guys. They definitely gave us the keys to be able to drive that bus, and luckily we were able to kind of just continue to keep pushing on. And I think it's developed great friendships that I think will last a lifetime.
Yeah, the relationships are really the biggest thing. that I really loved about high school sports. So it's great that you're talking about how well you guys did as a team. You set the points record at your own high school, and you were recognized as an Under Armour All-American. What was it like to get that recognition while there was a lot of
Yeah,
team success?
I still got the jersey hanging in my room. So yeah, that was awesome for me. I just grew up watching the Under Armour All-American games, and that was a really big moment for me. And just to be able to represent Haverford with two of my other teammates, and Noah Lehman and Drew Sapinski. The three of us were able to go represent Haverford, and then obviously represent Penn State. Tommy Wright and I were able to represent Penn State on a big stage on what talent they were getting in the future years. And so I thought it was a great experience for me, and definitely was a goal of mine growing up. Looking back on it, it's kind of funny to think that that little thing mattered so much to me, but that's kind of the beauty of sports, is kind of once you get one thing, you're hungry to get the next and the next and the next.
Yeah, so obviously as an Under Armour All-American, you probably had a lot of options to where you could go, and you chose Penn State. Obviously, a lot of family ties there. It's the biggest and best sports college in Pennsylvania. Were there other options?
Yeah, I mean, it was really Penn State and Maryland, which is really funny because Maryland's like our biggest rival. But yeah, just really those two. I knew I didn't want to go far from home. I knew I wanted a big university, which kind of just narrows it down to Big Ten schools. Few reasons, obviously, with my family ties and my brothers, my parents. But the biggest thing I would say is, just hearing Coach Tambroni talk. I mean, I speak publicly about it quite often, and he's just a guy that not only do I respect a lot, but has just given me a lot more than I thought I would get. And especially now being an alumni of that program, I realized I made a very, very wise decision when I was, going into my 10th grade year and committing there, because there are just a lot of things that I think you don't realize you're going to get out of it. And I didn't realize I would get out of it, until, I was in a new locker room this summer, and, some of those little things, they really just pop up. And he stayed true to his word to, try to create a better person out of me in the 5 years that I was there. And I think he did that. I look at myself my freshman year, and I probably wouldn't have liked myself, but that's the beauty of both growing up and college sports, is you just learn along the way. And I don't think it would have been possible without a guy like him leading the charge.
It's a great way to look at it. So you mentioned how your high school experience really prepared you well for Penn State, and you got off to a great start. You had 7 points in your first game against Robert Morris. You led the team in points as a freshman. What was the key to that early success?
I really give Haverford a lot of credit for, and Coach Nostrand, Coach Petrone, and Coach Loving. I give them a lot of credit for preparing me for that. And I think it's a mixture of things. It was a timing thing. They'd graduated some offensive guys, and I was able to kind of step into a pivotal point for them. And then I was surrounded by great players, and Nick Aponte and TJ Sanders, Dan Craig, Matt Florence, Mike Sutton. We had a lot of talent around me that were older, that were just very confident in me, and just continued to keep pumping my tires as a freshman, and that confidence was really what I needed to create success. And as the years went on, it was pretty cool how those roles ended up reversing towards the tail end of my career. And I had a kind of a similar relationship with TJ Malone towards the end that I had with Nick Aponte, while I was still playing, which it's really nice when it comes full circle like that.
Totally agree with that. So you made a huge jump going from 60 points one season to 24 the next, becoming an All-American. What's the key to just getting better? Because there's a lot of athletes in college and even the pros. They have a good season. They just talk about how great it was, and they don't really strive to get better. And I feel like I'm seeing it with the Patriots. I'm a Patriots fan, Stephon Gilmore. He got recognized as the number one corner and got the contract, and he hasn't really played up to it. But how did you get better? What was the key to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that just takes it's a few things. I mean, you can say the same about Pat Mahomes when he signs that big deal, and now I think he's playing even better, believe it or not. And I was kind of the same way. My sophomore year, I had 60 points, was an honorable mention All-American, and I just wasn't happy with that. I thought I deserved to be in the conversation, and those types of that type of motivation and that type of stuff to want to be at the top. That's kind of what pushes you in hard workouts and stuff like that. And the other thing is, obviously my personal success, happened, but quite frankly, I just wanted to win. And, in order to win, if I had to have 10 points in a game, then fine. That's what I'll do. If I had to, I look at the Maryland game, I was banged up from an injury, from surgery. And, my role was just to set picks that entire game and try to just, draw the defense and try to just distract them as much as I could. And that's what I did. So, I think it was a mixture of a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, I look at Chris Sabia. I mentioned him in the beginning. Him and I came from Haverford. He ended up being a first-team All-American in that 2019 season, and he and I just pushed one another, and we just looked at each other like, I remember, sitting down in a leadership meeting and just being like, this is it. Like nothing's going to be, we're not going to have any regrets with it. Let's lay it all out on the line and let's go at it. And, the correlation kind of showed for itself. Him and I went at it every day in practice. And at the end of the year, we were, on the first team All-American list, which I think was, really cool to share with him, him being one of my good friends and longtime teammates. But it really, I think, did come down to just wanting to win and really put Penn State on the map. I was tired of coming home every summer and guys kind of joking with me about, Maryland's better than you guys, Hopkins is better than you guys, and just kind of wanted to stick it to them and continue to keep pushing and really raise the bar for what it means to be a Penn State lacrosse player. Yeah,
it's really great that you took that personally and to make itself a motivating factor to get better every year. And it's probably awesome that you got to share with a great friend, not just a teammate. Before we get into Penn State and the success that, you had as a program and changing it, I got to ask, you set the record for most points in Big Ten history. How does that feel knowing that, you're not just someone that's a name at their own school that everyone's going to try and shoot for to break a record, but guy at a bunch of other different schools that everyone's going to try and, break that record?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's cool for two reasons. One, obviously it's a goal of mine to be in a record book. It would be naive of me to say that's not true. I have those aspirations, and in that aspect, it's really cool just because of the company that I'm in. Obviously you've got the Hopkins tradition. You have the Maryland tradition. Some great players out of Ohio State, Michigan, and Rutgers. So, I think just the company that I'm in, and then obviously, going towards the NCAA, same thing. It's just the company that I was in. I look at kind of, the point stuff, and the fact that I was close to Lyle Thompson I still don't really quite believe it, because I just remember how good he was in college and how good he still is today. And I just have so much respect for him that I would never compare myself to someone of that stature. And so, it definitely was cool. But then the other side, it's really cool just to represent Penn State. I think that's something that's way different about other Big Ten schools is, everything that I do, whether it's on the field, off the field, I want to do so where I represent, the blue and white proud, and have just such a emotional attachment to the school that, just because I'm not putting on the number 1 jersey this year doesn't mean that I'm not still, their biggest supporter. And, because they gave so much to me and provided me with such an opportunity that it is just something that, I hold close to my heart, to be able to just continue to keep representing them, with records and that kind of stuff, just because, I think the envelope is just starting to be pushed for them, and there's no reason why, this shouldn't be one of the most storied programs in the future.
Exactly. And I think it's awesome that you really want to be a supporter and really never leave the brotherhood of Penn State lacrosse. So I got to ask, in my opinion, I think Penn State is the biggest, alumni network that's not an Ivy League, just based on the numbers, how many people there are, and the success stories that are coming out of Penn State. What was it like to go on that tournament run and even play at, the Philadelphia Eagles Stadium, a team that you support? Did it feel like a home game at times? And did you ever at times like pinch yourself thinking about where you were playing?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, running out to a Meek Mill song while we were going out to the Eagles, running out to the link was one of the coolest things that I've done in my athletic career. Just because the year before they'd won a Super Bowl, so that was it was definitely pretty cool. But you bring up the alumni, and the alumni were just, I mean, they were absolutely electric in the stands and just provided us a lot of energy, and it felt almost like Penn State football at times. And I think that is one of the biggest compliments I can give them. But I think the coolest part was even post loss, emotional loss. Obviously, season's over. Seniors gone. We're out in the parking lot, and just the amount of people that came up to me and basically just said, thank you for allowing me to, reconnect with the program and, be a supporter of Penn State lacrosse, and really giving us all something to, believe in and draw us back in. There were guys that hadn't been on campus for 40 years that came to the game and just wanted to support us. And I think that part was probably the coolest, because, those moments are when you realize the impact that you have. And the impact that you have on those around you. And, win or lose, obviously I've been watching Memorial Day for the past 20 years of my life. But, win or lose, I think the biggest thing was just kind of bringing a lot of people together that wouldn't have been brought together if it wasn't for us. I think was probably the coolest part, along with just taking the program to a place that it's never been before.
Yeah, one thing I like that I see in college sports, something that pro sports doesn't really have, because everyone's tied to some university or college, but not everyone has ties to a pro team. All it takes is one run. I noticed that at Providence College with the hockey team, they make a national championship run, and they went in a few years ago, they go to the Frozen Four, and the culture is just completely changed. How does it feel knowing that you're a part of that for Penn State lacrosse, now that the bar is measured higher and that it's a different perspective and experience?
Yeah, it's definitely, I'd say the thing I'm most proud of, and I'd say myself and the class of 2019, the class of 2020, that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. The Big Ten ring that's right next to me is certainly cool. It's shiny, but at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing to be proud of is, one, we left it better than we found it. But two, we gave kind of the people there kind of the keys to continue to keep it going, and to set the bar even higher. Talking to TJ Malone, who I think is going to have, I think he's a future first team All-American for sure. Definitely an All-American this year. I have a lot of respect for him, but I remember having this conversation with him, because he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, dude, it's yours. Like, go get it. You know what to do. You're ready. And I think that part is probably the coolest for me to just know that, both my teammates and I just laid the foundation that the future teams can walk on, and hopefully they can lay down even more, and the bar can get raised even higher, that it's, national championship or bust every single year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. How sometimes you have to show that to the younger guys, hey, this isn't just a one-time thing. We're trying to, really set a culture so we can become like the Hopkins or the Marylands or Virginias that, we want to be with them. So you probably knew that you were going to be a high draft pick, whether there was no pandemic or not. How did the draft process get affected by COVID?
It got extended, I think, 3 weeks, but it really didn't affect it very much. The biggest thing that was affected was really just the amount of guys that were going to get drafted. And so, for me, it was kind of just wait and see. I had a feeling, given the Archers trades in the off season, as well as, kind of that ex QB spot was wide open. So, I kind of had a feeling. And then, Water Dogs were 2, and they probably were or Atlas was 2 and Water Dogs was 3. So I knew I wasn't going to go to the Atlas because they have Rob Pinnell, who him and I are very similar. And then, Water Dogs, that was probably my next thought. But it got messed up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think, the rookies that did get drafted just came out and just showed. I look at Brian, I look at Reese, some of these guys just played really, really, really good lacrosse for those 2 weeks. And I think for the numbers that we had, we represented the class of 2020 in college very well.
That's really good to have. So I got to ask, even this is a very individual achievement, but how did it feel to go number 1?
Yeah, it was cool. It didn't really quite hit me. Until I talked to so Paul FaceTimed me on the night of, and just welcome to the league, which was pretty cool. And then talking to Rob Pinnell, he's like, that's a small company that you're with to be able to get drafted number 1. So I think that's kind of where it hit. Is I look back at all of the great players who have played professionally in both the MLL and the PLL who have been drafted number 1, and it's just pretty cool company to be in. And yes, there might be an asterisk around it, and I don't know if I would have gone number 1 if the other players were there. But I'm just really grateful that they gave me the opportunity. And looking back on it, I'm even more grateful now because it was just a great fit for me with a great group of guys that I think is going to be very hungry and very poised to make a championship run next year.
That's a great way to look at it. So I got to ask, going into the bubble, was it really tough? I mean, did people want to leave? Because we saw that happen with there were players in baseball and basketball who didn't want to go into the bubble at all. Tuukka Rask, the Bruins goalie, left. I spoke with Tate Boyce, who went to Providence College, and he plays for the Water Dogs. And he said it was better than he thought it would be, and it seemed fine. But was it an okay experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any complaints. It was mentally and physically exhausting, but it was. We joked about it, but it was literally just like summer camp with your friends. We were in a hotel, just hanging out, and obviously there was a goal at hand, but. Mentally and physically, it was very challenging because, your body's not used to that just constant demand. But, it definitely, I give the PLL a lot of credit. Their logistics were just completely on point. Everything was buttoned up. And, when we got there, they treated us, pretty much for the most part, like first-class athletes. And, that's a pretty cool experience to be a part of. And for me, I'm really grateful that we were just able to kind of get on a field because, after I announced that I wasn't going to be going back to Penn State, there was talk that the season wasn't going to happen. And I was, basically just not going to be able to do anything until the following summer. So, I'm really just grateful that we were just able to get on a field. And I think that's the difference between lacrosse and other sports is, we're not making millions of dollars off of this. We're doing it because we love it and because, it's something that we hold near and dear to our heart. And just because of that, I think is why, you get such a good result out of these PLL games because guys just genuinely care about winning and losing.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, that you guys didn't really have high expectation in terms of where you guys were staying, and that, it's not like the NBA lifestyle going into a bubble, but it's a good way to look at it, and you guys definitely handled it well. So last question, you guys went to the semifinals for this bubble tournament. How excited are you for your guys' future as a team? You guys got a top player at each position. How excited are you for this core?
Yeah, it's definitely we've got a lot to work on, but we've got a lot to work with. So it's a nice combo, and I think some off-season moves. Obviously, we've got a phenomenal draft class coming in 2020. So, talking to some guys is hopefully and really trying to get the right fit for us from wherever coach sees the need. But luckily we've got some. Now I'm not a rookie anymore. I'm a second-year player, so I kind of know the ropes. And then obviously I've got Marcus and Will around me, and then Tom at the midfield, who you can quite frankly put anyone in the country around and they'll be great. So, and then our defense, our faceoffs, our goalies, they're all great players. So, I think it's a mixture of things. But I'd say excited is definitely the key word because, we do have a lot of great talent and we do have a lot of guys that care about one another. I just don't think the cards really were in our favor for the tournament, and we just kind of burnt out at the end, and unfortunately there's no way to prepare for that. It just happens. It happens when you're in a bubble like that. So I think that the chances are ours to take, and hopefully we don't get as much of the spotlight in this off season, and we can just put our heads down and go to work.
That's a great answer, and it seems like the future is very bright. Grant, thanks for coming on my show, and I'll be for sure following your lacrosse career, and we'll stay in touch, man.
All right. Thanks, George. See you, man.
Yep.